One of the difficult things about discovering our purpose is that God rarely shows us the entire path at the beginning. And when we first met Elisha last week, we see him in the field plowing. He can see the oxen in front of him. He can see the field, but he couldn't see where answering that call would lead. He couldn't see the years ahead spent serving Elijah. He couldn't see the chariot of fire. He couldn't see the mantle, the divided river. And last Sunday, Randy showed us the first step. God called Elisha, and Elisha answered. He burned the plow. He left the field and began following Elijah. But Scripture tells us very little about what happened next. But later, when somebody was trying to identify Elisha, they used these words to describe him in 2 Kings 3. He used to pour water on the hands of Elijah. So that's how Elisha was remembered. Before he carried the mantle, Elisha served Elijah in just very ordinary ways. He carried water for him. It was something that might have been unnoticed. So between the burning of the plow and picking up that mantle were years of just service, just years of carrying the water. But today we come to another defining moment in his life. And Elisha is preparing to carry forward the work of Elijah. And answering God's call sometimes means serving faithfully. And sometimes it means picking up a mantle. Elijah's about to be taken away. The mantle is going to fall at his feet. And Elisha is going to have to decide, am I going to carry this work forward? And before that moment comes, he is asked a question and he answers, let me inherit a double portion of your spirit. And so that's our title for today, double portion, found in 2 Kings chapter 2, verses 1 through 15. So let's just track his life up to now. He burned the plow, he's carried the water, and now he must pick up the mantle. Those are the movements of his life. Because Elijah is about to be taken away and the years of following are coming to an end. And the question is no longer simply, will I follow Elijah? It is, am I going to pick up the calling and carry it myself? Randy gave us this beautiful line last Sunday. Purpose is proven in faithfulness long before it's shown in prominence. And that's what we see in Elisha's life so clearly. Long before we see Elisha divide a river, we see him just faithfully serving. And that faithful service to Elijah continues until Elijah's last day. 2 Kings chapter 2 sure has the feeling of a final journey. Elijah knows that the Lord's about to take him, and Elisha knows too, and so do the company of the prophets. At Bethel and Jericho, they all talk about what's going on. They tell Elisha, don't you know that your master is going to be taken from you today? And Elisha answers, yes, I know, so be quiet. I don't want to talk about it, I get it. I understand. And 3 times Elijah looks at Elisha and says, stay here. He does that at Gilgal. He does it at Bethel. He does it at Jericho. Now, we don't know exactly what Elijah meant when he told Elisha to stay here. We don't know. Scripture doesn't tell us. Was he trying to test Elisha's resolve? Or was he trying to protect Elisha from the pain that's going to come when he is taken from him? The text doesn't tell us. But what the text does tell us is that 3 times Elisha gives him the same answer. As surely as the Lord lives, and as you live, I will not leave you. I will not leave you. I will not leave you. Wow. Elisha has been carrying water for years. And now as Elijah is taking his final steps in life, Elisha is determined to stay beside him. There's some things we just can't learn from a distance. Staying close to faithful people long enough to watch how they finish is important. There comes a time when one of the final gifts we can give other people who we love, is to show them what faith looks like as it walks through weakness, as it walks through aging, as it walks through life, through loss, and even death. And this is not just something older Christians can give younger Christians. I mean, as long as we live, we should be learning from someone and helping someone else to learn. No matter how old you are, there's probably someone older whose faith you can still watch. Unless you're Glendale Norman. Glendale is 104 years old. September 1st, a month from now, she turns 105. You know how you talk to a 4-year-old and they tell you I'm 4, almost 5, about to be 5? Listen, I think Glendale earned the right to say, I'm almost 105, don't you? Almost 105. And this summer, our children's ministry does something called Kids Club. And some of our kids from Kids Club went to Glendale's house to sing songs to her and just to visit with her. And I love this picture. I mean, here's some of our children near the beginning of their life talking to Glendale, who's lived over a century. I mean, isn't that special? One of the blessings of being church family is we get to see faith lived out. Wow. We get to learn from people who have walked with God much longer than we have. And we also get the opportunity to encourage and influence those coming along behind us. But the point is, none of us ever outgrows learning. And none of us ever outgrows the privilege of helping someone else learn. And Elisha has done exactly that. He stayed close. He watched. He learned. He had served. But now the relationship's about to change. Elijah has done everything for Elisha he could possibly do up until this moment. But Elijah could not give Elisha everything he would need for what was coming next. And now Elijah's final journey brings them to the Jordan River. Elijah and Elisha had stopped at the Jordan. Elijah took his cloak, rolled it up, and struck the water with it. The water divided to the right and to the left, and the two of them crossed over on dry ground. 50 men from the company of prophets are sitting at a distance watching all of this happen. And I want you to remember this scene. Remember the river. Remember the cloak. And especially remember the two of them crossing over together. Because before this story ends, Elisha is going to return to the same river. But he's going to come back alone. So Elijah and Elisha have crossed the Jordan together. Elijah knows his time is almost over, but before they go any further, he gives Elisha the opportunity to make one final request. When they crossed, Elijah said to Elisha, "Tell me, what can I do for you before I'm taken from you?" "Let me inherit a double portion of your spirit," Elisha replied. Can you imagine being given that opportunity? Elisha could have asked for anything. He could have asked for security. He could have asked that life be easier for him than it had been for Elijah. But Elisha had stayed close to Elijah. He had watched him. He had learned from him. He had served him. He understood enough about Elijah to know how much it required to live the life of that calling. And so he asked, "Let me inherit a double portion of your spirit." Now, when we first hear that word double portion, we might assume Elisha is saying, "I want to be twice as powerful as you. I want to do twice as many miracles. I want to become twice as important." But that's not at all what he is asking. So to understand the request, we need to understand a little bit about what double portion meant. It's not twice the power, it is the heir's portion. I mean, it's easy to assume those other things when you hear what he's asking for, but that's not what the language means. In Israel's inheritance law, the firstborn inherited and received a double share. So it's like this. If there are 3 boys in the family, the estate is divided into 4. And the oldest gets 2, and each of the others gets 1. It's a double portion of the inheritance. And so what Elisha is saying to Elijah is, will you receive me as your spiritual heir? Let me carry forward the work God gave you. And not only that, give me what I need to be able to carry it forward. So Elisha was not asking to be greater than Elijah. He just knew, because he knew Elijah, that he didn't have within him what it would take to carry this forward on his own. And Elijah's answer even makes it more clearly. He says, you have asked a difficult thing, yet if you see me when I'm taken from you, it will be yours. Otherwise, it will not. Why is it a difficult thing? Not because Elisha asked for too much. It's difficult because it was not within Elijah's power to give it, to do it. That wasn't his to give. I mean, Elijah could give Elisha his time. He could give him his experience. He could teach him. He could leave with him his example. He could even leave with him his mantle, his cloak. But Elijah could not place the power of God inside Elisha. And that's the same limit of every mentor. I mean, we can teach others. We can encourage them. We can be a good example through the way we live our lives. We can show them where to look when trouble comes. But we can't give them the power of God. But Elijah is a prophet. And he says, if you see me when I'm taken from you, it will be yours. Seeing Elijah taken is not the way to earn the gift. It would just confirm that God has granted it to you. So if you see me, it will confirm it. In effect, Elijah is saying, it's not mine to give, but God will show you whether your gift has been answered. A mentor can prepare us, but only God can empower us. And that brings us to the heart of Elisha's request. I mean, he knows he cannot carry this calling with only what he has within him. But he doesn't ask for an easy calling. Maybe the lesson for us is don't ask God for an easier calling. Ask God for what you need to carry it. He's basically saying, don't send me into this with only what I have inside myself. Elisha understands enough about the road ahead to know he's going to need more than just the courage he naturally possesses. He's going to need wisdom he's not yet gained, and he's going to need strength that only God can provide. Now, it's true, we often pray, God, make this easier. And there's nothing wrong with asking God to remove a burden or to open a better path. But maybe a deeper prayer is something like this. God, if this is what you placed before me, then give me what I need to faithfully carry it. Give me the faith. Give me wisdom. Give me courage. Give me the strength. Don't ask God for an easier calling. Ask God for what you need to carry it. And God's about to answer Elisha's request, but the answer will not come by making this next moment any easier. Elijah and Elisha are walking alongside together when suddenly everything changes. A chariot, a fire, horses of fire, a whirlwind. And Elijah is taken up in that whirlwind. Now, for many of us, we've been in children's classes growing up, and wow, this was always a great story. Teachers liked to teach it, and kids loved it. It makes for a wonderful coloring sheet, does it not? It is powerful. It is spectacular. But for Elisha on that day, it was a deep personal loss. Elisha saw this and cries out, my father, the chariots and the horsemen of Israel. And Elisha saw him no more. Then he took hold of his garment and tore it in two. Wow, this is not a detached observer watching an amazing miracle. Elisha just lost the man he followed, the man he served, the man he learned from, the man he loved. Elijah had become a father in the faith to him. And did you see it? One of those painful, simple sentences. Elisha saw him no more. And he takes his garment and he tears it in two. Tearing a garment in Bible times recognized as an expression of overwhelming grief. Remember Jacob when he thought Joseph was dead, tore his cloak, his garment. Job, when he hears about the death of his children, tore his clothes. I mean, this tearing of the clothes does not show Elisha losing his temper and becoming angry at God. It is instead grief so deep that it has to be expressed. And the calling of Elisha, the purpose of Elisha, did not make him feel untouched by this loss. His calling did not keep his heart from breaking. And before he picks up the mantle, Elisha grieves the man he lost, the man who wore it. And there is nothing faithless about this moment. And Elisha does not hurry past it. There is a time to remember. There is a time to honor. And there is a time to grieve. Faith didn't pretend or ask Elisha to pretend that this didn't hurt. And there are some moments when we just need to pause and not hurry through them. There's a time to remember what someone gave us, the words they spoke, the example they left, the way their life shaped ours. There is a time to honor the place they held in our lives and the good God accomplished through them. There is a time to grieve and to acknowledge honestly that someone we loved we will not see again. Calling and purpose does not keep our heart from breaking. Grief is not evidence that our faith is weak. Often it is evidence, though, that our love was very deep. And some of us know what it is to stand where Elisha stood. We grieve the loss of a parent, a spouse, a friend, a teacher, someone who shaped our faith. We remember them. We honor them. And we still miss them. Elisha didn't skip this moment, but neither does he remain there forever. Purpose doesn't erase grief, but grief does not have to have the final word. Grief is real, but grief is not the last action in our story today. Because Elisha eventually looks down and sees something lying at his feet. Elisha then picked up Elijah's cloak that had fallen from him. So when Elijah's taken, the cloak falls, the mantle falls to the ground. And it doesn't fall on Elisha's shoulders. It falls on the ground, and it's lying there at his feet. And Elisha could not bring Elijah back. He could not keep the past exactly as it had been. But he could decide what he would do with what Elijah had left behind. There is a time to remember. There's a time to honor. There's a time to grieve. And then comes the mantle. Notice this part of that verse. He went back and stood at the bank of the Jordan. Elisha doesn't stay where Elijah disappeared. He bends down, he picks up the mantle, and begins walking back towards the place where his own faith will now be tested. And I think in today's story, this might be the most decisive moment in the story. The decisive moment is not when the mantle falls. It is when Elisha bends down and picks it up. The falling mantle marks a transition. But Elisha still has to respond. Because it didn't fall on his shoulders. It lay there at his feet, and Elisha had to decide, is it going to remain on the ground, or am I going to bend down, pick it up, and carry this work forward? A calling can be placed before us, and it can still remain uncarried. Elisha could not bring Elijah back. He couldn't preserve the past exactly as it had been, but he could faithfully carry forward what God had now placed in his hands. Elisha could have taken the mantle home and displayed it above his fireplace to be seen by all, and often point at it when his grandkids were visiting or others came over. That's the cloak of Elijah. He wore that cloak when he did this. That was the cloak Elijah wore. And I picked it up off the ground and I put it there so we could all remember what Elijah had done and what he wore. Now, don't get me wrong, remembering matters. And we understand that here at Edmond. In fact, just right over there, we have a history corner. I mean, it's filled with pictures and memorabilia. You'll find a quilt that was made early on in our history and a plaque that explains it right beside it. You'll see preaching Bibles of former preachers here. You'll also see a little plaque on the wall. It's the image that we used when we were going to build this building. We had a logo or a slogan saying, "Touching tomorrow today." And if you look in there, you'll see this plaque. It's the hand of an older hand holding a child's hand over a Bible. And then later we took that image and we engraved it into a piece of walnut that was harvested off of a tree that was about where you're sitting right now. And that's all in the history corner. It's a reminder that one generation hopes that they can put into place a location that touches the lives of the next generation. And we preserve things like that. Why? Because people matter, the stories matter, the sacrifices, they truly matter. But we are not faithful simply to our history. We are faithful to the God that those before us trusted. Their lives should not leave us looking back and saying, look what they did. Their lives should teach us to look forward and ask, if God did that through them, will we trust that same God right now in our lives? Elijah's mantle was not given to Elisha so he could simply preserve it and display it and remember the days when Elijah wore it. It was given to Elisha so he could carry the calling forward. The mantle was the symbol of the calling, but God was the source. I mean, reminders matter, but they should point beyond themselves. That quilt out there, it's got no power. Those photographs, no power. The carving, no power. They're just reminders of people who trusted God before us. And the same thing with Elijah's mantle. It was not a magical mantle. The power was never in the fabric. The mantle was just a symbol of the calling. God was the source of the power. The mantle just represented the work Elijah had carried. And now that responsibility is lying before Elisha. But Elijah had not divided the Jordan. God had. And now Elisha held the same mantle in his hand. But having Elijah's cloak did not guarantee he would carry forward Elijah's ministry. I mean, he had the symbol of the calling, but he still needed the God who would empower the carrying of it. And that's why when Elisha returned to the Jordan, he didn't say, all right, guys, let's see if this old mantle still works. He asked a much more important question. He said, where now is the Lord, the God of Elijah? I mean, he's at the same river. He's carrying the same mantle. He stands at the same bank, but this time Elijah's not standing beside him. And when Elisha asks this question, he is not asking a geographical question. Where is God here in this world? No. I don't think he's even asking, does God still exist? What he's asking is, will the God who worked through Elijah now be present in my calling? Will the God whose power I saw in Elijah and in his life now work through me? And Elisha has the mantle in his hand, but he still needs God in his life. And yes, the mantle connected him to Elijah's calling, but only God could empower him to carry it forward. Are you captured by that phrase, the God of Elijah? It's a very scriptural phrase. It's how God repeatedly identifies himself throughout Scripture. You remember the phrases, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. Those names are given to help us, to point us towards God's faithfulness. I mean, remember the God who made the promise to Abraham? Remember how he preserved that promise through Isaac? Remember how he remained faithful through all the twists and turns of Jacob's life? Their lives have become evidences that God keeps his promises and that God is faithful from generation to generation to the next. And so the call here, Elijah's phrase, works in a similar way. The God of Elijah. It doesn't mean that Elijah or Abraham or Isaac or Jacob had their own little God. And when they were gone, their little God was gone too. That's not what it's saying at all. When he says the God of Elijah, it's saying, where is the God that Elijah trusted? Where's the God who sustained him, who gave him courage, that empowered him to carry forward with the calling? Where is the God who worked through him? The phrase does not make God belong to Elijah. It just points to Elijah's life as evidence of God's power and faithfulness. Elisha had seen God's faithfulness in Elijah's life. Now he had to trust the same God for himself. And eventually the God whose faithfulness we've seen in someone else must become the God we trust in our own life. And so Elisha strikes the water, and God answers. When he struck the water, it divided to the right and to the left, and he crossed over. I love God's answer. It wasn't with a voice. He answered with parted water. The same God who divided the water for Elijah now parts the water for Elisha. Elijah's gone. But the God of Elijah is not. Now, don't think for a minute that this means Elisha has become another Elijah. What it does mean is the same faithful God is now empowering Elisha to carry the work forward. And that company of prophets that were standing at the distance, they recognize what happened. And they say, the spirit of Elijah is now resting on Elisha. And what they're saying is not that Elijah's soul has now entered Elisha. They're not saying that Elisha has now just become a copy of Elijah. They are recognizing that the same prophetic power that Elijah had is now residing in Elisha. It's now evident in him. And God has confirmed that the work Elisha was going to carry forward this work. But he carries it forward not by becoming Elijah. This is not about duplicity. This is about continuity. He doesn't become Elijah. Israel at this time does not need Elisha to imitate or be an imitation of Elijah. What Israel needs at this time is for Elisha to allow God to work through him to provide what the people need. And what the world needs right now is not for me to become a duplicate of Don Van Zandt or somebody else I respected. They need me to allow God to work through my life, to be empowered by the same God. You are not called to imitate anyone. Be the person God needs in this situation at this time. Be faithful. Carry the work forward. But has what Elijah had really been passed on to Elisha? It was more than a mantle. It's more than information. It's more than a method or position. Elijah's life had taught Elisha something very important. And that was where to look for God. And the finest legacy we can leave is teaching others where to look for God. It's the greatest gift Elijah gave. It's more than a mantle. It's more than a position. It's more than a method. Elijah taught Elisha where to look for God. You know, when we walk alongside people, we don't walk alongside them so they'll always depend on us. We walk alongside them to teach them, to show them what trust looks like. And we help them learn because there's going to be a day when we're no longer standing beside them. Every parent and grandparent knows this. It's true for teachers. It's true for shepherds. It's true for ministers, for mentors and faithful friends. And the finest legacy we can leave is not that the people keep looking at us, looking for us, or remembering us. It's that they know where to find God. We taught them to look for God. And when Elijah was gone, Elisha knew where Elijah had always turned. As long as we live, each of us should be doing both of those things, learning from someone and helping someone learn. So just a few quick questions as we wrap up. Whose faith are you watching, and who's watching your faith? Whose life is showing you what it looks like to walk faithfully through difficulty, through disappointment, through change, through aging, through loss? Who are you staying close enough to watch and learn from? This does not mean you need somebody who's lived a perfect life. You just need someone whose life has shown you where to turn when it becomes more than they can handle on their own. And then there's the other side of that question. Who is watching your faith? Who's listening to the way that you speak? Who's watching the way that you serve? Who's noticing where do you turn to when your strength is not enough? And watching is important, but faithful people do more than just leave an example behind. They also come alongside others and help prepare them. So a couple of questions, similar but maybe a little different. Who is helping prepare you? And who are you preparing? Who's teaching you? Who's encouraging you? And who are you teaching? Not to become a copy of you, not to do exactly everything the way you did it, but to trust the same faithful God and to carry whatever work God places in their hands. That's what Elijah taught Elisha. He walked with him, he taught him, he gave him example. But the greatest gift Elijah gave Elisha was confidence in the faithfulness of God. Elijah prepared him. But then Elisha had to trust God on his own. And Elisha's story had several defining moments. And he did burn the plow. He carried the water. He picked up the mantle. And then he walked back toward the people. It's a journey, and those are defining moments. He answers God's call and leaves the old life behind. He walked through those quiet years when you just carry water, where he served Elijah, but people were still watching, and they learned from him. And then comes the day when Elijah's gone, and he picked up the mantle. But he did not remain where Elijah disappeared. He walked back to the Jordan. He called upon the God of Elijah. He crossed the river, and he carried the mantle back toward the people God had called him to serve. The mantle was never meant to merely be remembered. It was meant to be carried, and it was meant to be carried back to the people. And that brings the question to each of us. What's lying at our feet? What has God placed at your feet, waiting for you to pick up and carry? It might not be a public ministry. It might be a responsibility in your family. It might be a person that just needs encouragement. Or a work that someone else started that now needs your hands. Or a faith that you admired in someone else, but must now trust for yourself. Some of us, I'm pretty certain, are still standing beside the plow, deciding whether we're going to answer God's call. Some of us, I'm pretty certain, are in the quiet years of just carrying water, serving faithfully, few people noticing. Some of us may be grieving someone who once walked beside us. And some of us may have a mantle lying at our feet. The question is not whether you can become another Elijah. God's did not call Elisha to be a copy of Elijah. Israel needed Elisha. Israel needed Elisha trusting God. And God's not asking you to reproduce someone else's life. He's asking you to trust the same faithful God and carry what he places before you. And when God places something at our feet larger than we feel like we can accomplish, that requires more than we have within us, we come back to Elisha's prayer. God, don't send me into this only with what I have in myself. I need a double portion. Elisha understood that he didn't have everything he needed within himself, so he asked for it. He didn't ask to become twice as powerful. He didn't want twice as much honor. He just wanted to stand in the place of an heir and carry it forward and receive what God knew he needed to carry it faithfully. So maybe our prayer isn't for God to make things easier. Maybe it should be, God, just give me what I need to handle it. Give me faith in you. Give me wisdom to know what to do. Give me courage to bend down and pick it up, and then give me the strength to carry it towards people who need me. Don't ask God for an easier calling. Just pick up what he's placed before you and carry it forward. We're going to sing a song, and I've been humming the song because it speaks to me of what we talked about. It's also an invitation song. So I hope that you will take advantage of the song and the time of singing the song to let God speak to you in your own way. If you're still standing at the plow and haven't answered the call, that could look something like this. You know who Jesus is. You know what he did for you. You know he died for you. You've been studying. You know this. But you haven't given your life to him. Are you ready to leave the old life behind and commit your life to him in the waters of baptism? We've got time. We would love to celebrate with you. Many of us find ourselves somewhere else on that journey. Just know right now on your journey, wherever you are, you're surrounded by a lot of people who love and care for you. And if that journey calls you to need the prayers of support and encouragement from this church family, we would love to do so. Right now, in this place, we'll pause and reflect and we'll pray. For some of us, it's a deeply emotional time, perhaps, or something that's really a heart burden. To help with those, we have a couple of shepherds and their wives that are going to be in the parlor. You can walk through out of any door and just walk around. It's in the hallway right behind me. And in a very quiet, private place, you can share your heart. And they'll care, they'll love, and they'll pray with you. But for all of us, God's calling us. Let's listen to his call.